Uh, Coming on here. Is the music still playing for you guys, or is this just me? I'm like full like music going on. All right, here we go. Coming on here to do full fledged draft preview stuff. And Underdog does us a solid and just fully drops all the BBM4 contest information right on our ads. We got the last year's champ, Pat Kerrane. Couldn't have a better day to get him here. And yeah, legendary upside. Welcome back, Pat. What's going on, man?
Not too much. Yeah, I just got back in the country, and then the BBM prize structure dropped, so I feel like I timed out this trip pretty well.
I think they planned it around you. They planned it around you. They're like, hey, when's the champ home? All right, let's drop it right there. They had all your flight details and everything.
I actually didn't, but they might as well have. Yeah.
That's great. Let's just bring that up. Let's start right there. We were gonna do the definitive draft preview, and now I think it's become the definitive structure preview. So I'm gonna pull that up right there. As everyone could see, the 3 million to first, the 15 million total, and then the basically completely revamped regular season prize structure where they did away with the 1 million to one person and they made it 10,000 entries deep. Still the $25 price point buy-in. Knee-jerk reaction, gentlemen.
I like the restructure.
Yeah?
I really like the regular season restructure. I think that's awesome. That's like exactly what the purpose of this should be. You know, it's like I had this awesome team. I mean, maybe like in having an awesome team is, you know, having the 500 best team, having the 250th best team is still an awesome team. So to get paid off on that, I think is pretty sweet.
Yeah, out of like $500,000, yeah. I mean, you deserve a little consolation prize of $1,400 if you draft a top 250 team, I think. And this is a nice, like, this is the type of payout structure that we see in our daily formats now. Or yeah, I believe so. With the 10% to first, and then basically the similar type of structure that we see in the dailies, which is to say, it's a flat structure. And what we will get to with the rest of the prize pool is way more top heavy, which I think we can all understand from the business side, right?
It's not that flat. Like 10th place here is 20,000, and up top.
I guess 10th would normally be like 50. That's
this is actually pretty top heavy. This is we're gonna get to the week 17 prize structure, but I would call this fairly top heavy. It's not as top heavy as the week 17 prize structure.
Yeah. Still fairly top heavy, but hey, top 5 in the regular season 100K is pretty sweet. So I'm excited. I liked the leaderboards that they did last year, the weekly leaderboard. Hopefully that's something that we can get more of like a live view of somehow, some way, whether it's on desktop only, just to be able to see that in real time. Will be nice to kind of sweat this weeks 1 through 14. Should be or 15, 14.
Yeah, I think
they've still got baseball brain.
I think they've done a really nice job of doing exactly that, Nez, right? Where it's like the sweat equity of like all the stuff you put in. Now all of a sudden week 17 isn't all that matters potentially, right?
Yeah.
Because we're gonna have some sweat equity throughout the season. You're gonna be sweating whether you're gonna have a sweat at week 14, right? Something like that.
It's 2 different tournaments like wrapped up into one. And when that's how my brain immediately sees it is like with the prize structures, like you have the regular season, and then you can also advance that team that you've cashed for the regular season prize, and then you still have a chance at that week 17 prize structure. So for me, it just seems like it's broken down now into 2 different tournaments, and that could be a different way and cause how I like just how you're drafting and the mindset. So that's just my first thought.
That's probably like the best place to go with it. Like reaction to this, guys, are we still playing for week 17? Because that's still where all the money's at. Yeah.
Well, one thing I like about this is, for me, like, like I said, it's a little bit top heavy when you go down to 10th and it's only 20,000, but yeah, the 5th place is still 100K. And then it pays out a lot of different spots. So to me, it's kind of like you have the 101st best team, you bank 2K, but like that team could be awesome in the regular season and still be very well set up for a playoff run. And so it's not that like these are mutually exclusive. Like it'd be very plausible for one of the top 10,000 teams to get, at least a small prize here, actually be the team who takes it down in week 17. So personally, I'll probably be building like very, very similarly, especially because honestly, after like Leone's research, I might even lean more into the week 17 correlation stuff while also trying to get ADP value and everything. But, you're getting kind of like a little extra juice here because it pays out so many spots from your best teams. But then also like you're not chasing, like I actually think if it was a 3 million up top for the regular season, and 3 million up top in week 17, then we would have the discussion. Like the fact that it's actually this is flatter makes me less interested in chasing it specifically.
Right. And if it happens, it happens, while still ultimately searching for that week 17 monster team, which Leone's research kind of said, it's like you want to have a balance, which I think most people would kind of agree with, right? Like you don't want to chase positive advance rates only, but that does factor into, having enough bullets that are well constructed for week 17, I think was kind of like the TLDR of that.
And also like King Cap's team that won the last year's regular season was a 0 running back team. I'm a big 0 running back guy. I never would have said that's the strategy to use to try to take down a regular season prize.
Oh, right.
So,
good point. Good point.
So it's like, I don't know, like we still don't really know how all this stuff even works. Like maybe we're just like, actually maybe 0 running back's like a better regular season strategy. Cause like you'll have like probably, you took more running backs. Maybe not all of them are live to get you through the playoffs. Maybe it's actually like kind of a, when you hit the nuts, maybe it is actually a better regular season strategy. Like I still don't think so, but like, maybe that's like in 5 years, then maybe that'll be like common sense to us.
Right.
Yeah, that makes sense. A couple things I want to hit on there. For anyone who's not familiar, Leone's Best Ball Manifesto and Legendary Upside podcast episode with Leone, they're both links below for the podcast one. That's what we're referencing right now. And that stuff's free right now on ETR. And those podcasts are free on the Legendary Upside YouTube channel. And then this was a speculation that we were doing behind closed doors right here. I had it 11.3% rake, 25% entry. That takes the 15 million prize pool to about 16.9. And then I had it at 226K entries. This is probably, more. I did it in like 5 minutes before we were jumping on the stream.
It was like 500,000 entries last year. So
yeah. So it looks like adding like about 125K.
This is the number I
entries.
landed on as well.
Okay, perfect. It looks like everybody's kind of in lockstep with that there. And then we were speculating on the advancement stuff. I don't think you can definitively tell just from structure, but we think it's maybe 212, 116, 116.
I think they've kind of tipped their hand there.
Okay.
Like with the payouts, with the other payout.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, here, we'll move to there we go. That's the big week 17 payout there. One thing of note here that we've seen more recently in the daily contest that they've been experimenting with is the just money back here. So the round 2, 6th place through 16th as just money back and not like $35 like we'd seen it in the past.
I'm fine with that, especially with the regular season stuff.
Yeah, I think that's how you like structurally free up that capital to do the regular season stuff. So I think it's really smart by them to do that, right?
Yeah. No, it makes sense. And then ultimately, I mean, with the 3 million and the 1 million, you kind of eat up a lot of that prize pool on top of that. But part of getting there is, like you said, doing the money back for advancing. And I think you can do that when you award the best of the best in the regular season, because ultimately, we want this big prize, but do we want it allocated this much? As players, I think we have our own thoughts, right?
Yeah. I mean, I thought that this would be on, we did a Legendary Upside mailbag pod with Kyle Dvorak and Liam Murphy. And my guess was they would do 3 million as the first prize. It just makes a lot of, they went 1, they went 2, you go 3. Having that big top prize, I think, is like, it's just super smart. It's like it's an eye-catching number. Everyone's going to get super excited about it. When you actually get to week 17 and there's $3 million on the line for whoever takes it down, it's going to be super exciting. Figuring out a way to get there, I think it was pretty sharp by them. That said, I don't love the way they got there for me, it's actually not the the 3 million to 1 million drop. It's the 1 million to 300,000 drop that I think is a little disappointing, where like, and then the drop, to 10th, 30K. I think that's maybe higher than it was last year even, but it's that precipitous drop of like, hey, I finished 6th or 7th or 8th in BBM, a few points higher would have meant, instead of 50K, it's $1 million.
And you're out there. You're thinking about a drop.
My heart
you're thinking about a knee taken. Like you're just weighing on these things.
My heart already can't take this hypothetical sweat. Like I might not even draft this year. I can't take this. I can't take this mental swing.
It's hard enough for me to think about Justin Jefferson and losing me 50K, let alone if Justin Jefferson did that same thing in here and it's 100K.
At least there's no start sit. If there was start sit and this was the payout, I don't think anyone would be able to.
We would need like welfare checks on people, no doubt.
Yeah, the hypothetical sweat. There you go. I think we're kind of all like lockstep here that we kind of understand the structure, like the amendments to the regular season stuff, and evergreen. Always wish it was flatter, but this is what gives us, 2 millionaires and a half millionaire for the season. So, I mean, in terms of everything they've done, I really like it, and I think it changes the format enough so that it's different than years past, and we can start talking a little bit about this regular season stuff, but doesn't change it enough so that all the research and all our due diligence goes out the window, right?
Yeah, and if I had like a magic wand, and I would just walk over to Williamsburg and change everything. What I would do is I'd take a couple $100,000, maybe, I don't know, probably like $300,000-$400,000 out of the regular season prize pool, bring it here, and give it to places 3 through 10, and maybe a little, maybe bump up the 11 through 50 to 20K or something, and that would be like my preference. But I also think, from like, as people who are playing the game, that it might help us in terms of the leveling for it not to work that way, because this is actually going to feel like, this is kind of like going to feel like a lottery even once you get to week 17. So they think there's an argument to make, like, just build just go for the regular season prize. Just build the best regular season teams you can. If you get through the playoffs, so be it. It's a lottery in the final week anyway. You just need all your players to be healthy. Don't bother building for week 17. And I still think you build for week 17. I think I think you chase where the biggest money is, but maybe it'll help everyone. Maybe it'll differentiate the strategies a little bit, which is always a good thing in a game like this.
Yeah, I love that. All right, let's do what we intended to do here. This was a selfish endeavor, I will admit, because we are so vested in the hoops dailies and the baseball stuff that we kind of low-key punted the big board and punted the rookies and sophomore. We mixed in a couple there, but didn't get to the level of volumes like guys like yourself were doing there, Pat. So we now need.
You guys are the badge bros. You didn't have 150 slow drafts going like Pete.
we were up there. And at a certain point, I was pushing the airplane on some of those drafts. I would just I missed on Abanaconda. All right, forget it. Yeah, we're just letting go and letting God at certain points of the draft.
Pat, have you not heard of the push the plane movement?
No, I haven't heard of push the plane.
Oh, it's sweeping the nation right now. The auto draft movement of hashtag push the plane. It is what we are vesting our future in.
Gone are the days.
Push the plane.
The phrase is so good. I want to do this. I want to do it. I mean, I like drafting and I have no interest in auto drafting, but push the plane sounds so fun.
Gone are the days of squeezing EV of straight cash. We are squeezing the EV of time and life. And these are things you can get the money back. You can't get that time back. So we need the auto drafters.
What are you doing with your time? This is what I do with my time. I free up time so I can spend it on football stuff.
Exactly. Push the plane. Everybody's on it. Everybody loves it.
The other one that's trending right now, though. Sorry, the other one that's trending right now is hashtag blame Kerrane, because that's the Izzy one. The Izzy was the highest spiker in the big board drafts. What was it? 50 something spots. And, we thought that was our cute little secret for our 40 viewers every day. And you come out here touting the shit out of him, and he becomes the highest riser in the big board. So hashtag blame Kerrane is the other movement we've started.
For any content creators who want to just like get a lot of clout for someone rising up boards, what I'd recommend is make sure it's someone that other content creators like, because JJ Zachariason was touting Izzy long before I was. And make sure he crushes his pro day the day you start touting him. I would say those are the two secrets to that.
If you just want to start a business in this industry, I just suggest you get on TV shows with Matthew Berry and then win $2 million. And then you can start your own site. So, I think it's a very easy linear path here to success in this industry.
Easy game.
Speaking of your own website, been reading a lot, as John alluded to, like we have not been hitting the pre-draft tournaments hard. So in lieu of that, I've been reading a lot of Legendary Upside, and part of like what we want to do is do some kind of comparisons with guys that are in the draft pool and give some kind of player traits. So that way if you have, like, I definitely have a guy, like I have guys that I look for, like I like the shifty yards after catch wideouts. Like that's the guys that I look for. Tend to stay away, even though they're like better long-term for like big body guys. And you've been doing a really great job of summarizing the draft classes and putting them in tiers and ranking them. And I think if anybody isn't on there, definitely check that out. This will be like a little bit of a TLDR of some of that stuff on Legendary Upside. But yeah, John, here we did something similar with Pete for baseball season. We're big Sheets and Google in the Google Docs guys. We're working harder and smarter. But yeah, go ahead and John, if you want to lead us down this wonderful sheet.
Yeah, I don't know where the sheet's going to take us. I kind of want to do like if a player's name comes up, then we can kind of just jot down 2 or 3 traits on said player or something.
Yeah.
But I want the macro overview landscape right now without the nitty gritty. QB class, because we're selfish as shit. We don't give a shit about these defensive players and these offensive linemen and any of this kind of stuff, right? We're here for BBM4 knowledge only. QB, RB, wide receiver, tight end classes, temperature check. Good, bad. Are there clear defined tier breaks, etc.? Let's start with quarterback.
Yeah, I think there's a pretty clear tier break here after the top 4, because Hendon Hooker's coming off a torn ACL. And I actually don't think he's a very good prospect. He takes a lot of sacks, and he was like operating a not NFL offense. And so I think he probably gets fully redshirted. Like if you take a lot of sacks and you're coming off a torn ACL, are you really seeing that much playing time at the end of the year? So I think it is pretty clear tier break there. But I actually think it's a very good quarterback class. We got burned by a very good quarterback class a couple years ago. The Trevor Lawrence quarterback class did nothing for us in the rookie seasons. Mm-hmm. That might help us, though, in terms of keeping these ADPs in check. Mm-hmm. Anthony Richardson is, obviously going to be the guy for fantasy if he lands somewhere where he's going to start right away. I don't think like anyone's even close to Richardson if he looks like he's going to start. He's like probably like a 6th, 7th round type of value if he's going to start every game. On Legendary Upside, I was pointing out like this guy is pretty good when you look at big time deep throws. That's PFF's charting of basically awesome throws, 20 plus yards downfield. He's in line with CJ Stroud. He's in line with Bryce Young. People talk about his accuracy, which is a major problem, but his accuracy really shows up on short throws, which is unfortunate because Kevin Cole's shown that that's like by far the most correlated to actual NFL accuracy. So like I'm not trying to push aside that he doesn't have accuracy issues. He does. They're like a huge problem potentially, but he's kind of got like, you know, like Kyle Dvorak compares him to Derrick Henry, but the ability to play quarterback. He's like,
I've heard that.
Yeah.
Wow.
Which is like, doesn't that just like sound off alarms in your head? Like, like, what are we really dealing with here? Like, can we comprehend the fact that this is like an unreal prospect physically? You know, like, it's just like, to me, I'm sold. When I hear that, like, yes, sign me up.
I've compared him to like, what if he's like, you know, an elite rushing quarterback who plays quarterback, who passes like Drew Lock, which obviously sounds kind of terrible, but also sounds kind of fun. So like we're not drafting him for our real life team. We just need him to score fantasy points. So to me, Richardson's all about where he lands. If he lands on the Colts, wheels up, you know, anywhere where he's going to start, but he could land on the Seahawks. You got to be very, very careful about selecting him then. And then the rest of the class, I like Bryce Young a lot, I think, but you know, he's going to be like a usable guy who's going to start. I think he's like a good pick. It's kind of the very tail end of like the traditional quarterback window, around 13-ish type, around 14 maybe. I like him there. And then I've kind of felt like, you know what? I think Will Levis is probably going to be a better rookie producer than CJ Stroud, because I think he's a worse passer, and therefore he's going to have to run more. And he's big, he scrambles, and he's going to get drafted high, so he's going to play. So I don't really understand why Levis has had like a huge discount relative to Stroud in the Superflex drafts. I mean, rounds and rounds, you know, 4-round discount to Stroud in these Superflex drafts. Doesn't make any sense to me.
I saw something similar. I can't credit who put it on Twitter because I'm just infinitely scrolling, but put it up with their ADPs and whatnot about Levis versus Desmond Ridder. Like, just in terms of like how they were kind of around, like in a vacuum without knowing landing spot, like were we just so wrong on that? Like we should have been taking Will the whole time.
I mean, Levis is, of course. I mean, Ridder was not. I've taken some Ridder because, you know, I take some Pitts and I take some London, and then I'm like, well, maybe he'll do. But I mean, I was taking Heineke. You know, I'm like, give me the guy who's starting by the end of the year, not the beginning of the year. And I don't know. Levis's price made no sense in the Superflex drafts because he's going to start by the end of the year, no matter where he goes. So yeah, he's somewhat like, he doesn't have to be good to score points as a rookie. Daniel Jones scored a bunch of points as a rookie. Baker Mayfield he scored points as a rookie, was like coveted dynasty asset after his rookie season. These guys who run around and, you know, have major weaknesses as passers, but are, you know, either have the size or just are willing to scramble enough or willing to be kind of playmaker type dudes, which is one reason I like Young, can still score fantasy points for us. So overall, I think it'll be a pretty good best ball rookie class, and it could be amazing best ball rookie class if Anthony Richardson looks like he's going to start from week 1.
And we'd be remiss if we didn't address this, but Will Levis 1 is clearly just a meme that is hitting sportsbooks, right? Like there's absolutely no truth to this whatsoever, right? Can you please instill some sanity into the airwaves?
I mean, I kind of love it because I want to see Bryce Young. I like the idea of Bryce Young with the Texans. I just think he's like more fun in like a Shanahan style system. So agreed. I kind of would love, and you know, the Panthers just completely blowing it would be fun. I think that'd be kind of fun. I don't have any reason to root for the Panthers. There's no one on the Panthers.
Adjacent friend of the show, McCown. We have to.
Yeah.
Well, McCown.
Josh Norris is big mad right now.
Who's on the Panthers that we need to support? Right, like
Adam Thielen.
There he is.
You brought the wrong ADP chasing guy on. I am not Sam Sherman.
Yeah, we love Sam.
It's like one of the only Panthers I can remember. Right? I don't know. They've had like a whole just like turnover of everyone on their team. So I'm like, oh, I know he's there.
The Terrence Marshall post hype breakout.
Yeah, there you go.
Don't get me started on Shy Smith.
Yeah, this guy. All right, let's do a little same synopsis of the running back position. I think we kind of all feel it's the Bijan tier, then the Gibbs tier, then everybody else kind of mix and match. Are you seeing it similar, Kerrane, or is it 1 and 2 closer than we expect?
this is your week 17 Best Ball Mania 4 prize structure right here. You got your Bijan top prize, $3 million. You got your Jahmyr Gibbs second place prize at $1 million. And it falls off. I actually like Zach
I got
Charbonnet.
you.
I like Zach Charbonnet more for fantasy than for real life. If I was like a real life team, I'd be like, why am I drafting Zach Charbonnet, who's basically got the exact same profile as like 4 other running backs in this class? What's the difference between him and like Roshan Johnson or Tank Bigsby or Kendre Miller or Izzy Abanikanda? I mean, he's less athletic than Izzy Abanikanda. I saw Dane Brugler saying he thought Abanikanda, even though he's 216, profile maybe more as like a committee back type, just like he's not as like great through, in terms
He's
of
older,
contact
right?
and stuff. No, he's really young.
Anaconda's young as hell. He's not even 21.
He turns 21 in October.
Oh, he's the youngest one. Okay, I had that
Yeah.
reversed. Okay, cool.
But Charbonnet is someone that I've drafted a lot of because he's very safe to go day 2. He's kind of a guy who can do everything. He's got size. He's not going to leave the field. There's a lot of guys that I think are in that mold. I think some other analysts, and I get why they think this, because none of these guys are great pass catchers. But so some analysts think that this class kind of has like more like 2-down grinder type of profiles. And I think that's certainly possible, particularly like Kendre Miller, could just be kind of a 2-down grinder. But all these guys also fit kind of like they're in the same general vicinity as like Breece Hall and Cam Akers and like J.K. Dobbins, who I think maybe could be more of a pass catcher if he wasn't on the Ravens. There's like a lot of good guys who are like, they could go either way in terms of like how much they get used in the passing game. It's really up to the team. They're not going to force their way on the field as pass catchers, but they could be left out there. And there's a lot of those guys. Bigsby, Roshan Johnson, Kendre Miller, Izzy Abanikanda, Zach Charbonnet. Those are kind of like the premium guys who all have good size. They're either very athletic or athletic enough. They can stay out there. Roshan is like a great pass blocker. He's the best pass blocker of the bunch. So I think all of those, this is where the payout structure gets flat, right? Like it's like it actually does level out here. Nice little tier. There's a group of guys who are all kind of like, I thought Sean Tucker was the premium version, and then the arbitrage was Chase Brown, and then the arbitrage to him was Evan Hull. But now because Sean Tucker has this heart issue, the medical red flag that he's been cleared to play football, but really seems like it could impact his draft position.
That's scary.
I may have those like in reverse order or something but there's a few guys like that in the class, and that archetype is lower 200s, kind of like just under 210, pretty athletic, but more of like probably like an Eno Benjamin or a Alexander Madison, guys who are like pretty good at everything, but don't really profile necessarily as starters. There's the type of guys who could get left on the field if the guy ahead of them goes down, and then they're just like a do everything backup. I think there's a few of those guys in the class. There's like Tajay Spears, who's, a receiving specialist, but maybe not like an ultra awesome receiving specialist. So he's actually been a really tough one for me. Devin A-Chain's kind of more of like a speed early down rushing specialist. I think he can be used as a receiver, but wasn't super efficient as a receiver. So it's tough to see how he like becomes a fantasy star, but he's pretty exciting. So there's kind of like him and Spears are kind of like more like specialist types in this class. And then, Gibbs is he's the guy who's like a legit star as a receiver. He could be, if he goes to the right spot, like he could be an absolute superstar, I think.
Is he a day one guy for you?
Like Bijan's like a borderline day one guy for me if I was
Fair
like an
enough.
NFL team,
Piss boy.
Because day one is just round one, right? I mean, are they doing
Yeah.
round 2? Yeah, right. So
Yeah.
I mean, I don't think doesn't plan to be based on mocks from what I've seen.
Yeah, he's gotten a little bit of buzz in day one. I guess if like Bijan's going to go top 10, then Gibbs should be back end.
Yeah, I guess it kind of depends, right? Like on that, when that first domino falls.
Yeah.
I do think, and just like one question here, I feel like the field and partly because of like your work as well in identifying these, where the name comes from, the legendary upside running backs. The field has gotten really good at identifying that size matters for running backs. Being above like that magic number of like 210 or 200 is like very important for having RB1 upside. Like the data just overwhelmingly shows that. And I think the field is really picking up on this and using this in their decision making. Who is your favorite like tinier back that is coming out of this draft that you think can actually like make impacts? Landing spot obviously dependent.
Well, I mean, Gibbs is kind of like tinier in that regard, and I'll just note real quick that like Gibbs is a little bit tough for me in terms of putting out my opinion out on him, because I don't think he's probably going to be a very good pick if he goes in the 4th or 5th round of Best Ball Mania. Like even if he's Christian McCaffrey, which is obviously he's probably a very unlikely to be Christian McCaffrey, but let's say he is. Christian McCaffrey wasn't an amazing rookie producer. It even took him until his second year to really break out. Austin Eckler took 3 years, and granted he was an undrafted free agent, but like these guys, these smaller backs, and Gibbs is a smaller back. He's 199. I think is going to, he's probably more of like the second year ultra breakout type of play. So he's more of a dynasty guy. Not that I'm not taking him in the 5th, 6th. I liked him there partially because I think he may rise because the NFL could be pretty in on him. But I would say, as much as I like Gibbs, I would be careful with him if he rises up boards. Whereas with Bijan, I don't think you need to be careful. Like if he gets taken somewhere, it's like if the situation and the projections are saying he should be the 105, I'm going to take him at the 105 with everybody else. Like I'm not going to be.
I don't want to. I don't want to be too cute on him at all.
It feels like the Corbin Carroll thing again, right? Where it's like we didn't.
Do you know who Corbin Carroll is, Pat?
Oh yeah, Corbin Carroll.
Pat just sitting there like, of course, Corbin Carroll. Yes, I know that one.
Well, it feels like rookie year Zeke and rookie year Saquon, where they both landing spot found out, and then they both became like 108s, and then they slowly pushed up over draft season to like that 104, 105 window.
Yeah. If Najee was good is another version.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah. That'll piss Nez off. Nez wanted you so bad to say Deuce Vaughn with the undersized running back stuff.
I went on a tangent about Gibbs, but Deuce Vaughn is the guy. I think Deuce Vaughn is, to get him, just let him be drafted. I haven't taken a ton of Vaughn because it's like, where is he going to get drafted? Is it going to be somewhere that actually uses that type of running back? But dude, he is so fun to watch. I just like, there's a highlight video of his. The fun thing about Vaughn too is like you go watch the highlights. A lot of the highlights you'll watch. I'm like a highlight connoisseur. I will not watch the tape, but I love the highlights.
We love Just Bombs over here. Don't worry.
We love Just Bombs.
That's our generation's version of watching the tape.
Yeah, it is actually. But like when you check out a lot of these highlight videos, a lot of them will be like 2022 highlights. I highly recommend making sure you're watching Deuce Vaughn's career highlights, because this guy was making dudes miss as a freshman. I mean, he is so fun. He makes guys miss from like 10 yards away. Guys are like, their knees are fucking flying away. It's crazy. They just have no chance.
Tavon Austin 2.0. Don't tease me with it.
Oh, come on.
It's kind of Tariq Cohen-y. It's kind of, it's Sproles-y.
Yeah.
But to me, I mean, there's a way this guy, like, he's so like kind of dynamic that I think his box score could look like, like 0.3, 1.5, 0.3, 25. 0.2, like
2022
like,
DeAndre Swift.
Yeah. So I mean, seriously, but in the 18th round, so if he gets a landing spot with a more mobile quarterback, they use a passing down running back. I mean, I will have fun mixing him in the 18th.
Love it. Just overall, kind of like grade to class. Then is it's we know it's top heavy, it's price structure, but what do you think just overall?
I mean, I think it's a good running back class. It's just that it's like when all of the money is in the Bijan, and then it's like, well, no, there's no money left over, but it's so rare to get a Bijan. So I think like let's not be jaded here. We got
you.
we
Thank
got
you.
a Bijan Robinson running back class. Like, wow, this is a great
Yeah.
year.
That's what I've been saying
Absolutely.
from the jump. I'm like, we use like when we identify a guy like you just gotta celebrate it and
Yeah.
just get in on it. Like just have some damn fun, live a little.
Yeah. Wide receiver class then.
Ooh, this is I'm excited for this.
Yeah, I'm excited for this one too.
Even though it's
Is JSN your guy like everybody
Yeah.
else right now?
Yeah, JSN's my guy. I think that collectively we've all had a blind spot with this guy's gonna hit, but he's not gonna hit that hard type of archetype, which we have missed bad on the not gonna hit hard part of that. That was the Jefferson narrative.
Yep.
Oh, he's a slot. He's the second best wide receiver on his team and he plays out of the slot. Give me a break. Give me Jerry Jeudy,
oh yeah.
All that stuff. Jalen Reagor, guilty of that. Jefferson's, it's like, dude, if he's a first round wide receiver who is athletic and you're like almost certain will not miss, why are you questioning his ceiling? Like, he's a first round wide receiver. I mean, and like, I guess I would be open to the idea of, oh, you question his ceiling because he's only going to play in the slot and he's not going to be on the field in 3 wide receiver sets. I don't think that's the case with JSN, given that a team's going to be taking him probably in the top, definitely in the top 20. It's a team who thinks he can play out on the outside in 2 wide receiver sets. So he's going to have a full slate of routes, and he's also 196. So it's not like he's a tiny dude. He's like, he's the same size as like Jefferson, CeeDee Lamb, like, all these guys who we think are the best wide receivers in the league, because they are. So, yeah, I don't really get why. I mean, it seems like maybe I'm kind of arguing against the straw man now, because people have kind of come around, I think, largely on JSN. I think his combine testing, the crazy agility, and then a solid enough 40, people are no longer worried that he's all that limited.
I was hearing a lot of bear stuff on JSN before, reading yours. Like, it was a lot of people just fighting against it. Sorry, John.
No, you're good. No, I was kind of going the same direction. I was going to ask more the macro stuff. Do you think like the community is correct in souring on like the old X wide receiver prototype, like the Johnson, like that sort of like 6'4", 220 plus or 215? Like, do you think the new age NFL is correct in targeting like guys like JSN now as WR1?
I think kind of no, and also I don't think JSN is like a part. There's sort of 2 conversations that are happening about this class. One is like, basically Devontae Smith proved that you don't need to like weigh anything and you can be fine. But I would say like that's a different conversation than the one to have about JSN. Again, he's in the mid 190s. He's not a small wide receiver. He's not the classic X. And I do think that, the NFL is showing us that, like, through Cooper Kupp, who is also not a small wide receiver, but plays in different spots around the formation. Justin Jefferson can move around the formation. CeeDee Lamb can move around the formation. CeeDee Lamb spent over 60% of his snaps in the slot last year. Spent over 90% of his snaps in the slot as a rookie. So, like, that type of guy, I do think the NFL is moving more towards. And it does seem to be moving a little bit away from, the really big classic X wide receiver. Although, certainly like the AJ Brown mold works really well still.
Yeah, he's good.
He's quite good. Yeah. So I think that narrative's been like overblown a tad bit. But I would say like it's been overblown, like where like I've not been a real fan of Josh Downs throughout the process, because he's really tight. He's like 171 pounds. He's a pure slot receiver. He's not going to play on the outside in 2 wide receiver sets. And the idea that like, oh, it's a new NFL, he's going to help underneath with the 2 highs and all that. Like, yeah, he might, but he's not going to help us that much for fantasy if he's only, running around on 75% of dropbacks or whatever. So
that's interesting that you have the down on Downs, because based on like the way, like on your write-up, the way that you kind of wrote about his production in college, it kind of intrigued me. There's guys that get a chunk of their yards on screen passes, right? Like really easy type. Well, easy, you know, like they're getting fed the ball. But it seemed like Downs, and correct me if I'm wrong, had like a diversification of a portfolio as far as how he was being used, like intermediate and a little bit short and long.
He was more intermediate and short.
Okay.
The guy that I like more than I thought I would, because of like kind of the way he was used, is Zay Flowers. Actually, like he was used deeper downfield, and he's just over 180. He was used in the intermediate area. He's kind of seen as like this route runner. He's a 4-year player, not like the most. He's, you know, kind of some red flags from pure analytical profile, but he strikes me as a guy who can probably play in the slot and on the outside, move around the formation. So Flowers kind of jumped out to me like that, and Jordan Addison. I was very pleased to see kind of how he was used as well, because he was used quite a bit downfield, and he's a smaller wide receiver as well. And so that type of profile, not that like, it's kind of like, okay, if you're that small, are you really going to be, and you don't have elite speed, which neither Addison or Flowers really do, then probably not a deep threat in the NFL. But I feel better about you being like an intermediate producer, kind of like a Devontae Smith type of guy.
So you don't see Flowers being like a volume merchant on a team that was just desperate for somebody to make a play. You actually,
well, that's the concern. Yeah, that's definitely the concern with Flowers. And he, is a 4-year guy who's really getting a lot of NFL draft buzz because of what he did in his 4th season removed from high school, which is like the classic red flag at wide receiver. So I view him, I've compared him to like Kendall Wright and, Michael Floyd in terms of, they're very different. Michael
2
Floyd
guys that
bigger.
Both lost me a lot of money. Perfect.
Yeah. But like that's kind of it's a similar profile. But like those guys had productive, like very early careers. They came out of the gate like okay. It's just that there wasn't much of an actual ceiling to them. So I actually think so Flowers is a guy from a best ball perspective that I'm kind of more in on than I think I will be in Dynasty. I don't really want to be. I don't believe in Downs in like 2026 or whatever. I don't want to hold him on my roster and be like, he's going to hit. But I think he can, in the same way you said, like he's the best of bad options in college, he could be the best of bad options in the pros, depending on where he lands. And he's got a versatile skill set, and he seems like, he's kind of ready. So I'm not like super worried that he gets like buried on a depth chart and we never hear from him.
Okay. Yeah, I like that. In terms of, I think this kind of pushes past tight end for a second there, because as we're talking about this, I'm kind of thinking through my mind, who's going to go in the first round, how many of these guys, in terms of how many kind of first round wide receiver talents do you think there are right now?
Like real life NFL?
Yeah, real life NFL.
I mean, I think JSN is, and I think Jordan Addison is. And then I think Quentin Johnston is borderline. Very late kind of first round type of guy. I don't think Hyatt's a first rounder. I definitely don't think Downs is. I think Flowers is more of like, to me, a second rounder. I wouldn't draft him in the real life NFL if I had a first round pick. So I would say it's probably like I'll give Johnston the benefit of the doubt and say 3. I think there's probably 3.
Okay.
Do you think there's more of a polarizing player based on landing spot and capital than Jalen Hyatt right now in the draft? Is that kind of fair to say?
Yeah, I mean, where are his defenders? I did a mock draft with I did a mock draft with Jacob Sanders today. He was like, I kept being like, I don't know, I guess I should take this dude here. Like, and he was, I think, confused, like who I even meant.
Really? Maybe it's just me. Like, is it really just me? I feel like the Davises over in with the Raiders, because I just love burners, and I feel like Hyatt has legit like when you see somebody that makes D1 athletes like look silly, to me like that catches my eye, and I feel like if he lands with the Raiders, then it's like no. But if he's on like the Chargers or a team that can utilize him well / is okay at identifying talent, then I feel like we should be paying closer attention. And just because he has what I deem to be a polarizing profile, I guess I'm on a one-man island here. I thought he could be a huge riser, depending
The
on
more you talk, Nez, all I'm hearing in my mind is Jalen Guyton over and over again.
Yeah,
Hyatt.
that's to me. I'm like, if he goes to the Bills, which seems like super plausible because he's going to be around in that part of the draft, then it's like, oh man, because he played out of the slot. He's a smaller guy. He doesn't have elite speed. I mean, he's a 4.4 guy. You know, it's not.
Oh.
I'm not saying he's slow, but like he's not Tyquan Thornton. You know, so I'm actually, you know, the fact that he's going to probably be playing on the outside. He a lot of his production came on go routes.
right.
Similar to Quentin Johnson had that same sort of issue. It's like, he's kind of a raw route runner, basically.
Mm-hmm.
But in Hyatt's case, he's a raw route runner who was running like go routes and stuff and wheel routes from the slot. So it's like there's nobody even guarding you for the beginning of your route. It just seems like, God, I don't know. If you go, the Raiders is a perfect example. Like, go to the Raiders. They're going to ask you to do like all this like actual NFL wide receiver stuff. Like, he's going to bust super hard. Because they're right out of the gate. It's like, oh, he's not doing all these things he's never done in his life, and we shouldn't have drafted him to do, and we're just never going to hear from him. But I think if he goes to the Bills and they're like, you're going to line up in the slot and run straight, and it's exactly how you produced in college.
Dude had 5 touchdowns versus Bama.
Dude, he's legit.
I did not know that. I didn't know that.
It's kind of funny though, because Kyle Dvorak pointed out so much of his entire college career was that one game. He just went off against Alabama, and now it's like a first-round pick. Like, he didn't do.
You know what that tells me, Pat?
That's kind of the JSN story, really.
That tells me that he has legendary upside in big spots. That's what that tells me. This guy's a big game player. You want a big game player? Get up against Bama. Like, this guy's not giving me Thursday night football versus the Jags. This guy's showing out on Sunday Island games. This is a showdown slate, bro. I've already pegged him. Showdown slate, bro. We got him.
The thing about the Hyatt, like, so other people who know football, and the formations in college and everything. I'm like basically just paraphrasing poorly what I've heard, but basically, like, Tennessee's offense is like very unique and odd relative to an NFL offense, where they kind of have these like slot wide receivers who line out pretty wide, but they're off the line, so you can't press them. And Cedric Tillman was lining up like more as a traditional wide receiver on the line. Hyatt was not, and it is gimmicky. I mean, it's a gimmicky kind of offense, like relative to what he's going to be asked to do in the NFL. It's just not what he's going to be asked to do. So can he make that transition? It's possible that he's making that transition very easily and very well, because he's a third-year player. He's an early declared wide receiver. He broke out in his final season. He's fast. He could be drafted in the first round. He could have awesome quarterback play. So I think the idea of writing off Jalen Hyatt is foolish. And I kind of want to in my heart of hearts, because I'm just not that into the profile. But like, I've had to kind of keep him in the mix, because I'm like, dude, if he goes to the Bills, I get it. Like, I'm not going to be totally poo-pooing him as this, because I mean, that's like a perfect fit for him. It's like a perfect fit.
I like that.
Just to circle back on, I just wanted to note some stuff on downs, but if you want to.
No. Go for it. I'm not going to cut you off.
Yeah. So just the down stuff, I wanted to note, one reason I'm kind of a little bit nervous about him is that he was producing a lot of his yards after catch on shorter targets. So I had the note here. Okay. Yeah. He generated, he produced 41% of his college yards after catch on targets behind the line of scrimmage, and just 18% of his yards after catch on targets that traveled 10 plus yards downfield. So that's a red flag that popped up for other productive 3-year college players like Calvin Ridley, Christian Kirk, N'Keal Harry, Laviska Shenault, Rondale Moore, Tutu Atwell, and Wan'Dale Robinson. So he kind of has like the gadget player red flag. Now, not all, like, Ridley wasn't a gadget player. Kirk, not really a gadget player, but sort of more of a slot type of guy. You have some big busts in there like Harry. But I think he's like a true slot and probably like an underneath type of guy.
Like it. I know you got a hard out in like 10 or so here, so I'm gonna kind of rapid fire some of the rest of this stuff with us. The tight end class, any immediate year one impact guys, because guys that we're going to be looking at, how high in BBM4.
So yeah, I think Dalton Kincaid and Michael Mayer are the two guys that are going to be drafted to be pass catchers. I think Mayer is more interesting because he's a pretty good blocker. And I like Denny Carter kind of does the like, please don't block as a tight end bit, which is like very funny. Like, but I think we want our tight ends to be blockers because they don't block on pass plays very often. They're run blockers, right? So if Michael Mayer is a trusted run blocker, then he's going to be out there on play action plays. He's going to be out there around the goal line when they play action off that. So I think Mayer, and he was so productive in college, I think Mayer is the better bet than Kincaid. But Kincaid is pretty interesting as well because he was more of a downfield guy. So Mayer's kind of like, you're betting that he's like kind of like maybe Greg Olson, or like Jason Witten before he was just completely washed, or Zach Ertz, those type. That's like who you're hoping he is. Kind of more of like a target accumulator. Dalton Kincaid is maybe more of like a seam stretcher. He's like a little bit more exciting in terms of like his per target stuff. But then it's also a deep class. Darnell Washington, I like just as kind of a play action touchdown guy who could like run a fair amount of routes if they're just like, hey, he's doing all right. We're going to leave him out there more than we thought we would by the end of the year. I think he could kind of come on down the stretch like a Jelani Woods, but be out there more. So I'm Davis Maddock is kind of like derided me for still being in on Darnell Washington because he's basically a big right tackle. I agree he's a big right tackle. I think he's a big right tackle. Is going to catch some touchdowns in the fantasy football playoffs. So I'm in.
Right. Yeah. Does he not know how the prize structure works? Should we send him the
tweet? Does he not know the variance in touchdown scoring from the tight end position?
Yeah, someone DM Davis the prize structure for BBM. I don't think he saw it. But it's a really deep class. Sam Laporta I really like. He's a yards after catch guy. Tucker Kraft is probably going to get drafted day 2. He's like a smaller school dude who's like pretty solid. He's kind of more of an underneath guy, but he could be like maybe a little Chigakonkwo-y this year. Zach Kuntz is probably a day 3 guy, but if he goes day 2, he could be kind of interesting. Luke Musgrave, I'm not as into, as he's more in that Kraft tier for me than I kind of like Laporta more than Musgrave. But yeah, I mean, it's a deep class. And I think that these tight ends are going to be in the mix for us in round 18 because they're going to be good bets to come on by the end of the season. Like you're trying that TE3, I'm going to tack them on, try to get a playoff touchdown out of it. By the way, I can go a little bit after one.
Okay.
I have a question because the book on rookie tight ends is like no rookie tight end can ever do it. And we had Kyle Pitts come out and look what Kyle Pitts did his rookie year, didn't do anything. But we also see yards. Okay, but I mean ask the general fan and they will tell you Kyle Pitts was a bust. But we know.
Yeah.
He busted so hard in his sophomore year that his rookie season doesn't even count anymore.
We don't even give a shit about his 1,000-yard rookie season, which was, amazing among itself. But how much do you think that this class, one, has a chance to, like, based on their skill sets in the vacuum, to kind of buck that trend? And two, how much of that is just like based on like the landing spot and the way that coaches trust rookie tight ends? Like how much of that is just like coaches just don't put trust in these guys as opposed to these guys just not being able to do it themselves?
Yeah, I think that's probably a lot of it. And then it's probably like the blocking issue of it. Like to me, Kincaid has actually worried me a little bit. I just haven't been as confident that he's going to produce right away, even though I do like that he's a seam stretcher and truly kind of like a receiver playing tight end. But he could be kind of Noah Fante. I don't know. We're getting like the immediate production out of him.
Or ever getting production in no offense case.
Yeah, that's true. Oh man. But I think like Mayer could be kind of like Evan Ingram-y. He's more of a block. He's not the big slot type, but he's more of the blocker. But he's probably going to have like a lower ADOT, and it's more like a play of he lands somewhere where there's a lot of targets available and he soaks them up, and that's kind of the play with him. He was so productive. Early declare, going to have good draft capital that I think he's like a very good value again because he's a good blocker. Like I think he'll be able to get out on the field pretty quickly. But yeah, I mean, like Mark Andrews took years to really turn into anything. A lot of these guys, they take a long time. So in my view, it's kind of like a better version of last year's tight end class than anything we want to be like fundamentally shifting what we're doing with the best ball drafts. Like last year's tight end class ended up being kind of fun because all these guys came on at the end of the season.
How many of this class, like just in your mind right now, not knowing landing spot and whatnot, would you take over Trey McBride?
Well, that's actually a good question because I think I have taken probably like 4 of them over Trey McBride, but like I maybe shouldn't have. So I'd say like the 2. I think Mayer and Kincaid you should be taking over Trey McBride for sure.
Okay. Yeah.
But after that, you probably should be the prudent move is to take Trey McBride. Now, if you've recently watched Darnell Washington and you just love the idea of him scoring touchdowns at the end of the year, it's fine. If you like Sam Laporta like I do, I think you can talk yourself into that. But yeah, I would say McBride probably should be like the T3 relative to those guys or whatever.
Okay. Sounds good. I kind of hinted at it with the wide receiver one there. I just wanted to kind of get a rapid fire numbers game from you, like how many you think are actually going NFL day one from each of these groups. Quarterback, what do you think? Kind of, I know we're not in the business of predicting NFL draft stuff, but just
I'll say 5 quarterbacks. I'll say someone trades out of round 1, so a team can come in and get that 5th-year option on Hendon Hooker, which I don't like the idea of, but I think there's been like enough buzz there that I'll go ahead and say that happens.
Do you think what you were saying about the Tennessee offense is why people are really down on Hooker? I mean, outside of the ACL, because like someone in the chat put it that he was kind of like a fringe Heisman candidate after that. No, he's a Heisman favorite after that game versus Bama, and then, the injury and that sort of thing. But the gimmicky offense, that makes him like hard to evaluate, which makes people instantly kind of, okay, no, right?
I think that's part of it for sure. He's also 25 years old. And he's redshirting. So your first look at him, I think, is probably when he's 26 years old. Wow. Like that's not really worth the first round pick to me, but I think someone might do it. So we'll see.
Brandon Wheaton.
Yeah, it is. It's close. What was he, 27 or 28? I mean, it's not far off.
27. Yeah.
Yes.
Oh my gosh.
But if you're gonna take him, I mean, it kind of makes sense to at least get the 5th-year option on him.
That makes sense. Yeah.
Running back, I'll say 1. I'll say it's only Bijan. Gibbs falls to early day 2. Then someone scoops him up.
All right.
Wide receiver, I'll say 4.
Okay. We're mending.
I think Flowers is going round 1, I think.
So Flowers, JSN, Quentin Johnston, and Addison for you?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I like that. We didn't really talk much about Quentin. Like, doesn't it feel like 5 years ago he would have been a top 10 pick? Like he would have got like the Corey Davis treatment?
Yeah, it does. Mike Renner's compared him to bigger Brandon Ayuk, and that's my favorate comp for him because
it's my attention.
Yeah, right.
He's a deep yards after catch guy, but he gets kind of treated like, oh, there's no big wide receivers in this class except Quentin Johnston. But I don't think he's a big wide receiver in terms of his usage. I think he's going to be like his best case scenario is that he's getting like used on, deeper routes where he can get hit in stride and then, he's taken off, so he was not good in contested catch situations. So he's not that kind of big wide receiver, I don't think.
Okay. Is this true?
Levis is old? Levis is pretty old. Yeah.
Was he a fourth year guy?
Because he was the backup at Penn State. He's turning 24 in June.
Okay. He was backup at Penn State for 2 years? Something like that. I don't want to put you on the spot.
I'm not sure.
Yeah.
So Quentin definitely has, like you said, like the label of the big guy, and maybe it's just because his draft cap was expected to be so high. Tillman and Mingo are both like fairly like big for a wideout these days, right? Like, or do you have any sort of like for me, Tillman is really interesting. I think the fact that he kind of fell off in his senior year to Jalen Hyatt, I mean, like, I think most people, and you would agree, would consider that like a pretty big red flag. But his build and his season before he fell off, to me, like, has me like kind of intrigued. Do you have any sort of slightly bullish thoughts on Tillman? He's been kind of like creeping up my board in my mind palace.
Yeah, I like Tillman. I think he's fun because he is the guy. Him and Mingo are kind of like the guys who, if you want a big wide receiver, you want like a classic X wide receiver. And even if it's going to be like you're going to use him kind of like Michael Gallup or something, but you just want him to like kind of eat those snaps at the X. Like, I think he's a good candidate to do that. He plays big. He was a good contested catch player. He's got 10-inch hands. He had a 37-inch vertical. He was pretty productive as a fourth-year player. Analytically, his profile is like kind of a nightmare. He didn't do anything his first 3 years, breaks out in his fourth season, returns, gets passed by an underclassman while he's fighting through injuries. It's like, oh boy. But but then he's probably going to be like a second-round pick. And it looks like he's kind of locked up day 2. So he's the type of dude where it's like, yeah, let's take some shots, and let's take some shots in best ball where we're kind of touchdown hunting. So if he has like a very late round ADP after being a second round pick, you can get him in the 17th, 18th round or whatever, even 16th. Like, I think he makes a ton of sense. Coming on down the stretch, scoring us some touchdowns, getting us through the playoffs.
Cool.
I'm into it.
I like that. And then round 1 tight ends, Pat, how many do we think?
I'll say 3. I'll say Mayer, Kincaid, and Washington. Davis Maddox.
Someone's going to just take a swing on Washington, right? Like, from a real life football standpoint, they're just going to go like 6-7. This guy's a monster. We don't care. We'll figure it out.
Yeah.
Yeah. Davis Maddox keeps mocking him he had a podcast with Ben Gretsch where they did a mock draft. And he also put out on his newsletter his mock draft. And in both, he had Darnell Washington to the Bengals. And it's just so perfect because he is just basically a right tackle, and they need a right tackle, and they also need a tight end. So it's a 2-for-1 for the Bengals. And I'm just in. I'm like, that is happening. That is going to happen. So, let's just start drafting like it already did happen. I love that call. And I think Mayer and Kincaid are pretty safe bets. There's enough tight end thirst in round 1 that I think both guys end up going ahead of where the Bengals pick. And then I think the Bengals pretty easily talk themselves into Washington. I would talk myself into Washington too. I think Washington probably has like a lot of real life value.
I watched one highlight that Hayden put up. Like, obviously watched them in like championship games and stuff like that. But I watched the one highlight where he's like lined up on the edge of the line and just trucks some dude, runs out in the flat, catches the ball, and then 8 yards downfield hurdles a dude. And I'm like, I'm in on this guy.
Yeah,
like,
he seems fun.
He's 6'7", 250. Yeah, I like this guy. Like,
here's what we need. We need Darnell Washington moving out on a screen pass, just absolutely trucking a guy so that Deuce Vaughn skirting behind him. That's what we need.
Yes.
Make that happen.
No one will be able to see it.
Take them both.
That's literally a cheat code. No one being able to see Deuce Vaughn before he's
where
like
is
5
he?
yards
That's
before he's
gonna-
5 yards behind you, and you're turning around. You're like, oh, that was that
He's
breeze I
drafting
felt down there?
on.
Yeah.
He's drafting behind Washington because he's so large. He has no air resistance, and then he just slingshot.
Literally, yeah, it's slingshot
Fucking
engaged, and he
Ricky
just-
Bobby out here.
Yeah, he's getting the toe. He's getting the toe
Shake and
from
bake.
Darnell Washington. He's coming up.
Yeah. Yo, activate that DRS and get
Yeah.
going.
Yeah.
Oh goodness.
Oh, that's great. I love it. The legendary upside question. It's going to be tough without landing spot and stuff like that, and I don't want you to pinpoint your brand on it. But are there players in this class that you feel will fit that mold?
Bijan,
Yeah.
for sure. Rookies are generally not like the most ideal bets for this, but what are you looking for if you want a running back who's going to score like 23 plus PPR points per game? You want a guy who's going to be catching a lot of passes. You want a guy who's going to be used around the goal line a lot. You want a guy who's going to be very efficient. You prefer that they're on a really strong offense, which Bijan probably won't be. But you also, want a guy who's going to be like a team's entire offense if he's not on a good offense or with a good offensive line. And Bijan, it's like, dude, he's going to get drafted so high that I think that will happen. Now, the thing that scares me about Bijan is, does he go to the Bears? Does he go to the Ravens? There's a report the Ravens kind of like him. That is how you kill the legendary upside on Bijan Robinson, because you're just not going to get the receiving production that you might otherwise get from like a Washington, even Atlanta. Atlanta would do some dump off stuff. They've done some stuff with Cordell Patterson. Like I don't think they're obviously not an exciting passing game, but they would get him involved enough. So that it's the mobile quarterback part of it that worries me a little bit with Bijan, because he's not like an Alvin Kamara level receiving prospect. He's like a Saquon Barkley level. He's more of a kind of an accumulator who's good. Saquon's obviously good in the receiving game, but he's not Kamara electric. And I think Robinson's similar. So he's kind of the one guy. I think, like I said, even with Gibbs, I could see him being, 2-3. I could see him having like 2 or 3 seasons at a legendary, like that's his, if he hits his high ceiling outcomes, he could have a couple legendary seasons because he's such a good receiver. But it's probably year 2, year 3, year 4 is when we're looking at the most likely years for that.
Okay.
If you could just put Bijan like on your ideal spot, like take the draft out of it, you know what I mean? Like obviously there's, people haven't, we have the order of how it's going to go. Take that out of it. Just if you could just boom, you're starting a franchise and Bijan's on that the way that these teams already are. Like what's your number one ideal landing spot for him?
I think the Vikings.
Come on. You don't have to patronize him.
Don't tease him. Don't tease him.
I can't tell if there was a planned troll before the show or if he
This
just,
is like
he
when
knew you were gonna
Schefter
ask that
told
question.
when Schefter told PFT that Lamar was going to the Commanders. Like you can't do this to Numi's heart.
I mean, I just my soul and everything left my body, and I'm just like, you just.
That's a good
okay,
answer.
tell me more. Tell me more.
They pretty clearly need a third playmaker. Dalvin Cook is most likely out. They brought back Madison, but I think Madison is best is what he has been, which is a really good 3-down backup to a better running back ahead of him. I think they would use him a lot. Like O'Connell, I think, comes from this coaching tree, the McVay coaching tree. They've been totally fine, like using a lot of a running back. It's like it's kind of like a sharp old school approach, that McVay style. So I think you'd get everything we're looking for in terms of the running back usage in Minnesota. And then I also think with Kirk Cousins there, you're getting a stationary dump off passer. I mean, Kirk Cousins threw short of the sticks on a must convert down. Like, he loves throwing short. You're gonna get a ton of Bijan dump offs.
I love that.
You're not wrong there. Yeah.
I mean,
and just going on that, the Vikings, we made it. We've re-signed Ham. We've basically came out and said we're basically going to run the ball more, and we have plans to run the ball more, whatever you take that with. But so now I'm
established the
fully locked in.
Bijan.
Yeah, now I'm
We're
fully locked
manifesting
in.
it. Prayer circles are aligned.
I'm on NFLshop.com, and we have a custom jersey already coming. So.
Love it. Oh my god. Realistically, I don't think he falls to 23, right? Do you think it's in range outcomes? So. Yeah, someone will move up to
it
get
seems like
GMs
maybe it was earlier.
Yeah.
And I don't know that this this front office will trade up for a running back, but that's my dreamland. Maybe they trade up somehow by dealing Cook. They're able to deal Cook and move up, and they take Bijan.
Cook at a pick swap.
Getting happier and happier right now. This is unreal.
Newbie's not gonna sleep for the next 2 days.
The girl's gonna look at me. You okay? It's like, no, I'm literally looking for anything I can find on Bijan Vikings. I've gone Twitter. We have gone Reddit. Now we're just going dark web style. We're covering all the bases.
Newbie's literally I bet he's thinking about other girls meme right now.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly
somebody will workshop it.
So good. Man, a lot of people saying Philadelphia. Do you think that's kind of likely within the range outcomes? That
would be a little bit of a bummer for me because they're not going to throw to him as much. It's not just that you have the mobile quarterback with Hurts; is that like they just get it. They attack downfield. They're not that interested in throwing to the running. Like my thing with the running back position is that like you don't want your coaches to be too sharp. You want them to be like a little sharp, but not that sharp, because then they wouldn't use the running back enough. And actually, and if we're it's like I want a little sharp's best, then just like dumb. That's my second place is dumb. Like so like let's go somewhere where he's like the whole offense. That's what and no super sharp coach is doing that. So I'd be
see a
pretty
tier
nervous
list of NFL coaches right now where you rate out
where
these guys fall in on super sharp and then dumb, and then where we're falling into the other areas.
Yeah. Well, yeah. So I think the Eagles, but the Eagles with the offensive line and just the touchdown upside, like I will not be out if he goes to the Eagles. But it's probably not like my favorite dream landing spot, just because I think it hurts his 3-down production maybe a tad.
Yeah, it's pretty interesting because the way I'm kind of looking at it right now, then it kind of makes Atlanta the ideal scenario of what you're saying.
Now, like what are you saying about Arthur Smith there? You think he's done?
You know exactly what I'm trying to say.
I think Atlanta's a pretty ideal landing spot. Yes.
Yeah.
Say it that way.
Oh man.
I think Washington's a pretty good landing spot as well. Like that one, people maybe wouldn't be as excited about. But I think, and that's more of a Rivera comment than a Bieniemy comment, but I think they would use him a lot. They would use him a lot. And they just don't like Gibson. Robinson, like Robinson's worse than Madison. I think like he's clearly like a backup level guy to a Bijan. So I think he would just immediately take over that backfield. And another team that really could use a third playmaker. So I think he's pretty interesting there. Houston is somewhat interesting. They just don't have any real weapons, and that team could be like super run heavy and creative in how they get the ball to a guy like Bijan underneath in the passing game. Given the Shanahan,
I'd be kind of shocked
guys.
if they hypothetically went like quarterback at the top, and then they come back at it's 12. They have 12 or 13 that they have on the 12, other side. Yeah, 12. Yeah. After seeing what they saw from Pierce last year, I'd kind of be shocked if they.
It wouldn't be very smart,
Yeah,
but the front office theirs.
Yeah.
Not in the super sharp tier.
They're not in the super sharp tier. Yeah, they'd be great coaches for a running back.
I love this. Let's go. I kind of, maybe this is framing the question in the same vein, but I was kind of just thinking like guys that were comfortable drafting regardless of landing spot in like BBM. That was kind of my line of thinking with this right now, of this grouping, kind of like the guys that we previously discussed, all the top 4 or 5 quarterbacks, all the top 5-ish running backs, top 5-ish wide receivers. Is there anyone whose like name we haven't said yet that independent of landing spot, you're going to want to have some exposure to?
The one guy that I really like, and more than I thought I would because he is so small, but I think Jordan Addison is like pretty landing spot independent. And I think you're going to get very excited about him if he goes, to the Chiefs or the Bills, if he falls, which I think is totally possible. But also, like, if he went to the Vikings, I think he's going to crush. He's like a better version of Jahan Dotson in that scenario.
Speaking of crush, you're going to crush Newbie's heart with all these Vikings references.
Sorry.
It's like I can't wait for an offensive lineman or a defensive lineman I haven't heard at 23.
But I mean, Addison can play. I think he can play outside. I think he can do some damage downfield, good in the intermediate area, very productive 3-year player. Ben Gretsch and Sean Siegel have really noted that he ran less routes in his final season, which is one reason his production doesn't look quite as impressive at USC as it did at Pitt. But just a really, really strong analytical profile, and did his damage like a traditional wide receiver. Not gimmicky, even though he's small. I think he's going to be like an awesome real life wide receiver 2, kind of like an Emmanuel Sanders type of guy. Kind of like forming like a 1B with someone. So to me, I'm like, put him with Jefferson. That's great, But if he were to go to Kansas City and was like kind of the clear kind of downfield outside wide receiver, with Marcus Valdes-Scantling like doing his Jalen Guyton thing, like, yes, I'm also in on that, And I think he's good enough where he doesn't need like elite quarterback play. Obviously, we don't want him to have terrible quarterback play, but like, let's say he went to the Packers and he's got Jordan Love throwing to him. I think I'm in on that too. Like, I just, because I think the other thing that's nice about Addison is he's not so exciting. I don't think his price is going to get out of control if he were to go to the Packers. So he feels like a guy, maybe we're getting him in round 9 if he's on the Packers, even though he went in the mid first. So yeah, he's probably like the most. I'm just not worried about his landing spot. I think I'm gonna find a way to get like moderately excited no matter what happens.
Okay, yeah, I like that. Yeah, that's perfect answer to what I was trying to get at. The potential, I put Richardson here because we were talking about quarterbacks, and you said he's gonna be the most fun if we get a landing spot where he starts immediately. Thinking through some other landing spot poppers based on kind of the conversations we've had, I think I could go ahead and put Gibbs here as well as kind of like if he finds the perfect home, he's going to vault. Anyone else, any other names you can think of that would be like, yeah, I'm super in with this pairing?
I think that, the beauty of this running back class is that the group that I mentioned earlier, Roshan Johnson, Kendre Miller, Tank Bigsby, Izzy Abanikanda, and Zach Charbonnet are all potential like, oh man, like this dude went in the second round. He went to a team that needs a right. The Bengals took this dude in the second round and they cut Joe Mixon. Wheels up, right? That there's a number of guys I could see that with, or maybe it's a third round, but the class is deep, and I think I've kind of seen this. I think Rich Rebar is like kind of on the other side of this, where he's like, are there enough spots for these guys? But I tend to think like these older running backs might be a little bit more susceptible to dudes pushing them out.
Yeah, we haven't really seen a huge changing of the guard in a couple of years.
Yeah, I think we might get that a bit this year. And none of these guys could be pushed out themselves in 2 years. Like they might be kind of more like short-term fill-in types because they're not elite profiles except Bijan and I think Gibbs is borderline elite. Especially from a real life perspective with the value he adds in the receiving game. But these other guys, they're more kind of like, more like your Cam Akers, your J.K. Dobbins, like very, very solid guys. But you could have them come in and take over a backfield down the stretch. So any of these guys where you can envision them like, okay, yeah, weeks 1 through 4, we're not going to get a ton of production, but there's a spot where they can work themselves in, be a better version of like last year's Pacheco, that type of mold. There's a lot of guys that I think are really interesting for that.
Yeah, I like that a lot. I'm getting really excited about some of these back end running backs that as soon as we find like landing spots, I'm just looking at kind of potential landing spots that I could get really excited about. I think Cincinnati is probably like the 101 of that because I think we all assume Mixon's getting cut, P. Ryan's not coming back kind of thing, or maybe he comes back on like 1 year, something of that magnitude. But I'm kind of looking at some of these other spots, like, maybe Buffalo adds somebody on there, right? I mean, maybe they don't have to after what they did last year. I'm surprised you weren't as in on the Baltimore thing as because I was pretty excited about the potential of Bijan plus Baltimore early in like those initial like rookie mock ones, but maybe I'm just out to lunch there. Yeah, that's
well. I mean,
I'm clearly out to lunch.
Stinky, man. not with the quarterback and JK in my opinion, but I digress.
It's just not ideal, but yeah.
The other one I'm thinking is if the Chargers get weird, if your boy Austin Eckler, if something changes there, if there's holdout movement, whatever's going on, that could be fun too, right?
Gibbs to the Chargers is awesome, right? Like, because we're not getting as much year one production as we want, but like he's the next Austin Eckler. I mean, that's where you get the dynasty guys just going crazy. So there's a lot of fun ways this can go.
I just like one quick Chargers question, just because I still have Burns from Isaiah Spiller. Is he just completely dust, or do you think they were just like saving him?
I think he's probably done.
Yeah.
That breaks my heart. I had a lot of them last year.
I love the way he moved and the fact that he was so big. I'm like, oh, this is great. This is what we've been waiting for. A big shifty guy, and then doesn't sniff the field, and Joshua Kelly is playing over him. So yeah, you're probably right.
Any other potential landing spot poppers, wide receiver or tight end combos that you would like, or can we move to our very last segment?
No, we can move to the last segment.
All right. This is the definitive deep dive. Say some names that nobody else has said or we haven't said yet that will maybe look smart in the future. And we can clip the shit out of this and be like, legendary upside times badge bros. Look at how fucking smart we are.
All right. Michael Wilson. He's a guy that like no one talks about. Yeah. He's real. He doesn't make him up. He's a Stanford wide receiver. He crushed the combine. He's not a very good profile, but like I think he's going to get drafted kind of high. There's been like a little bit of buzz about him. He's like one of those guys where we're like, we have to take him now. He's not in the underdog player pool as of now. They probably need to put him in, but he hasn't been. Sneaky. That's like the other thing. It's that like no one talked about him because they're like, well, he's not in the underdog player pool, so he doesn't exist. But he does exist, and he's probably going to too.
He is not. He is a generated guy from Madden. We generated a draft class.
Create a player.
This was the 101 wide receiver, Michael Wilson.
Yeah. I don't think he's very good, but he's athletic and he might go day 2. So he does exist. So that's keep him in your
decent size
radar.
GMs.
Decent size, yeah. Let me think. Anybody else? Evan Hall.
Okay.
He's a
Tell
guy
me about Evan Hall.
So I said before, like I had him maybe flipped with Sean Tucker, but you can arbitrage him with Chase Brown. You can arbitrage him with Evan Hall. I might have that whole chain flipped. Evan Hall is actually the most exciting of those guys, Northwestern dude. He's actually like pretty efficient as a receiver. Decent size, kind of in that 209, 210 range. And I think he's got multiple outs to working his way into a role. And so he's probably a day 3 running, very, very likely a day 3 running back. His projected draft capital has been concerning enough to where like day 3 is fine with me. I just want him to be drafted. But he's a dude who like could work his way in. He's probably going to be more of a handcuff type, but in a good situation where he can work in as like the clear handcuff, maybe be kind of like a Jalen Warren type of guy. He's a kind of a fun deep name.
Okay. I like it.
It is indeed HULL.
Nailed it. There we go.
Northwestern guy, so he's got some brains on him. He can read a defense real well.
That's right.
Oh, there we go. Beautiful. Any other names there, Pat, that we want to add to this list, or are we cool to wrap her up?
I think we should wrap it up. I got to jump over
great.
to
yeah.
another
Go ahead. Let us know where you're going next.
I'll be over on the Swolecast. We're gonna be talking some draft prospects. I assume I'll be mostly throwing questions about day 3 centers because it's a David Kitchen joint. So
nice change of pace for you.
Yeah, it'll be fun.
We gotta mute this guy on his way out the door.
Yeah, who is?
Go get
anyone
prepared.
know who that is?
Yeah, put this user in a timeout. There we go. Walk for 5 minutes. There we go.
just lost a high value sub. Way to go.
Oh man. Pat, really appreciate you coming on, doing this with us, giving us kind of like that Spark Notes rundown of the guys who have been paying a little attention but not paying full attention to NFL yet. Look forward to jumping in the BBM4 streets. Hopefully we can do some of that together in the future. And the impromptu BBM4 breakdown. That was a lot of fun. Prize structure, nice of Underdog to time that release with our show as was completely planned from the jump.
Smooth.
Oh man. Any parting words for the people, Pat? Go sub to Legendary Upside.
Yeah, subscribe to Legendary Upside. I've got all my rookie content there. I will have best ball rankings dropping Monday because that's when the tournament's going to start. So we got to get them out, and they'll be uploadable to Underdog. I'm running an early bird discount right now, which is $69 for the year. There are going to be some additional perks that are coming that I will have some information on that early next week as well. So if you subscribe to the yearly, there will be some additional perks that you'll be getting next week that you'll be excited about if you're watching this podcast. So there's also, I'm running a 30-day trial right now on both the monthly and the yearly subscription. That'll end after the NFL draft. So if you want to jump in on the trial, you got to do that before the draft.
How much was that again?
Perfect.
You said
it's $69 with the discount.
Nice.
Yeah.
Where's that code? What's the
thanks.
Go to legendary.com, legendaryupside.com/early to get that very nice offer.
Okay.
Nice.
Sounds great. Admittedly, I have been doing all the other sports, so I haven't even done that yet. So expect a nice, cool $69 USD, $1,000 Canadian coming your way.
P. Ryan plays for the Bengals.
1,000.
Yeah, it's $1,000 Canadian dollars coming your way. All right, boys, got off the rails. Go catch Pat on the Swolecast next. On behalf of Numi, Nez, Pat, myself, I'm still scrolling, looking for the button. Everybody's favorite time of the show. Good luck tonight in the Underdog streets. The end.